A little historical precedent here. Does anybody know this guy? Germany. Prussia, more accurately, just before the advent of the German Empire. Now, Otto von Bismarck has been considered by many to be a dictator of his time, a ruthless general of before World War I, essentially. This is the late 1900s. Oh, sorry, late 1800s. So he was considered Iron Chancellor because what he decided to do one day as the premier of Prussia was announce that he was going to invade another country, all right, the neighboring countries of Europe. And now this was a time when all the countries were really, really restless and tensions were high, and it would have sparked up World War I, but not yet. So what he did decided was, I'm going to piss off a lot of people around me, a lot of nations around me. And when they are getting ready to attack, I'm going to attack them with my military force. I'm going to crush them. And then I'm going to piss off Austria, and Austria's going to piss off each other, and I'm going to attack them. So what he's trying to do is create a simmering cauldron of military tension. Why would he do that? If you think about the strategy, this is the tactics he's playing with, but there's an overall strategy to his game. Now, of course, we know that the Prussian Empire at this time was a military mighty empire, military might. So what they did was that if you had an opposition, they would easily crush you, especially those smaller countries around the area. But as he was invading all those countries, especially France, he came to a point where he decided, let's just stop. All right? Whereas all the other European countries were cowering in fear that the Prussian Empire was about to steamroll over them, he just stopped and said, let's call back the troops, let's end this war, and let's start building treaties. Let's start making peace. So we have a complete reversal of character here, and people thought that he was perhaps becoming very weak. He was being basically being a pussy. You're a mighty German military commander, and now you're pulling back. Whereas all the other nations around them were scrambling for empires, for land, for resources, Germany was closing in, building its borders up, and maintaining security. And they were wondering, why did he do that? Because that was his strategy all along. So he wasn't interested in imperial expansion. He was simply interested in strengthening Germany's borders. And the excuse for going to war was precisely that. Does that make sense? So he went to war with the intention of bringing peace to his country. He was out to eliminate all the threats around him so that he could maintain Germany's safety in a very tense political situation. And of course, we saw the rise of the German Empire straight after this, and Germany became a formidable force and therefore culminated in World War I. So definitely this is a guy not to be messed with because he had a vision, a strategy, but also the tactics to achieve it. The most important thing is that he did not reveal his strategy until the end, which is what is the most amazing thing about his own personal motivations. So, that's a bit of historical precedent, but it just goes to show to you that people need to think steps ahead in order to get what they want, and that's where prescience comes in. The top chess players can anticipate 15 moves ahead. Who plays chess here? Now, if you say you're good, do you think you even get close to thinking 15 steps ahead?
Depends. Because if you play with that person like for a long time, then you can anticipate what that person's gonna do, to be honest. Because I always play with that, so I don't know what he's gonna do.
Chess is a war game, isn't it? Essentially. It's about having a strategy of how you're going to checkmate the other person, or how you're going to defend yourself against, attack. So when we talk about top players in chess being able to anticipate 15 moves ahead, are we able to do that in our own lives? Whether we have a goal, a project goal, personal goal, professional goal, a career in mind, are we able to project ourselves 15 days, 15 months ahead, 15 weeks to get to where we need to be? And can we anticipate all the obstacles in the way? So that's something that you can take from this. Guess which company I'm talking about? It's one of the largest food and beverage companies in the United States. It's considered the symbol of American capitalism.
Coca-Cola.
McDonald's. An average American visits one of the shops 6 times a month. You can make purchases of its products through online mobile phones. In fact, one of the key things about it, very special thing about it, spends more on healthcare on its workers, employees, than its own coffee beans. Starbucks, fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Starbucks is one of the first companies to achieve 10 million likes on Facebook.
Oh, nice.
That's how big it is. Now, a lot of you may say, oh, Starbucks coffee is crap, blah, blah, blah. But why is it so amazing? Why is it so profitable? This man, Howard Schultz.
German.
Howard Schultz is the CEO of Starbucks. And he's a pretty wealthy rich guy, filthy rich guy. But the key to Howard Schultz is to understand what strategy he had in mind when he was leading Starbucks. Now, essentially, this was the 1980s, back when a lot of restaurant owners, a lot of establishments were considering downsizing, cutting costs. Let's mechanize things. Let's cut employees. Let's cut a lot of benefits as well. Let's cut maternity leave. Let's cut healthcare benefits and all those sort of things. Now, no people had it harder than the part-time workers who worked at Starbucks, and obviously 2/3 of the people who worked at Starbucks were part-time workers. Who, if you're in America, knows that there's no benefits whatsoever except a crappy minimum wage. So imagine you are the other business owners, and you're trying to cut down costs. Whereas this guy, he did something special. He said that I want healthcare for all the part-time workers. And now you're the investors, and you see Starbucks is losing money, and you're realizing this guy is making a terrible mistake here. We're trying to gain money, profit, and this guy wants to give healthcare to the workers. Hilarious. And you're the board of directors. You think this guy is going mad. I am not being a board of director of this company and seeing this company go to waste because we're spending a few $1 billion on our employees. But of course, this guy's strategy here is simple. I want passionate people working at Starbucks. Right? I don't want people who just have a minimum wage. I want them to have healthcare benefits. I want them to have a decent standard of living. So he's got an ethical approach to this. He's got an ethical approach to improve the lives of his staff, all across the country even. So think about how big Starbucks is, even overseas. Basically 2/3 of Starbucks is overseas, if you didn't know that. And he wants healthcare for all of them, which is a very expensive gamble. But of course it paid off, he was persistent, and now Starbucks employees are enjoying the benefits of his persistent strategy. And of course the result of that is, I can see there, essentially 5 times or 500 times retention, employee retention as a result of that. So you can see the long-term benefits coming to play. Sorry, the long-term goals bearing fruit as a result. And of course, if your staff is happy, your customers are happy. Because what this guy wants to do is not to have a coffee business serving people, but to have a people business serving coffee. And that's the culture of Starbucks. So it doesn't matter what you think about the coffee. It doesn't matter that they have a Trenta-sized cup that is bigger than your stomach. They have a very positive culture going on here. People first. And that's something that in our projects should be a priority. Whether we're empowering people, always keep them first. Now his company is worth $35 billion. Imagine that money. And just with a focus on the people, $35 billion. As compared to Mark, 40 years, we look ahead to the future. So this is a guy who's always being prescient, who's always looking steps ahead to see where his company could be. I'll give you another example, which is on the slide, but I forgot his name, sorry. But the founder or CEO, at least of Twitter, resigned recently. Why? Because he saw long-term benefits to his resign. He saw that if he resigned, his company was going to thrive without him. It was a smart decision. It was a decision that was selfless, in fact, because he knew that if he stepped down, his company would grow. And that's probably the hardest decision to make as a leader of a company, of a multi-billion-dollar organization. So, in summary, for prescience, plan all the way to the end. All the way to the end, even if it sounds unrealistic. Because what you're doing here is you're not thinking of fantasy, you're making reality as you go. Anticipate success, make progress towards it. Anticipate failure and prevent it. Mitigate all possibilities of failure. Because a general who goes into a field without knowing the size of his enemy, knowing how the outcome will be, is not going to win out, let alone the war. And of course, the future is uncertain, but having the vision allows you the freedom to adapt to it. So don't think that being able to plan ahead means you are rigid, you're stuck in this in this place where you're a victim of fate. You create your own fate, you create your own destiny, and that's where, that's where real power comes from being able to take charge of your own life. The symbol here is an oracle. Not the oracle in terms of supernaturally prophesying the future, but the oracle who's able to be very specific and not vague or ambiguous, or having some fancy language that we're going to get here somewhere, or we're going to be here at exactly this time, having exactly this. Be vague and become a victim of fate and circumstance, but have vision and become a victim. Because you would rather fail by your own devices than fail because of the devices of people, circumstances around you. Because if you fail by your own devices, you can at least work toward developing it. All right. Second one is the action. Action is a causation of change to accomplish a goal or an objective or an aim. Now, all of you take action every day, whether in projects or in your life, or whether you're making steps forward. Because obviously you can't have a vision without action. What can we learn about action? Two things. Win through actions, never through arguments. And number two, active boldness. Now, I like number one because it's simply telling you that actions speak louder than words. It's a cliche, fair enough. But we'll see that it's actually something that permeates through our entire lives, and we know this to be a very powerful force. Demonstration, not explication. So we'll go through that. What's this?
David says that.
This is a statue of David.
Is it small? What is so small?
Hey, I'm a grower, not a shower.
I will tell you why it's so small.
Oh, really?
If you know the biblical story, David's standing before Goliath, and when you're shitting your pants in fear, things shrivel up.
Really? True story.
This is by Michelangelo, a famous sculptor and artist. You know that he painted the Sistine. Fantastic. So this is a guy who's known for his absolute perfection in detail. There's really nothing you can criticize about his work, except his benefactor. Now, Santorini was a very prominent benefactor of Michelangelo. Without him, Michelangelo would not have any work. Without work, he would not have made the fantastic sculptures and paintings he did today. Now, the thing about benefactors is that you do not want to piss off the benefactor. So when the benefactor comes around and sees your work, sees you working up there on the scaffolding, chiseling up at David, and asks you to come down, just have a little review, and Michelangelo says, "Hey, how you going? What's up?" And then Santorini says, "I think the nose is a little too big. Can we change that?" Now, of course, Michelangelo, being a famous artist, he knows that the nose is perfect. And this guy's wrong. Why? Because he's not up there. He's not seeing the perspective from a guy who's the same height as David. So instead of arguing with this guy, instead of saying, "No, you're wrong, you should actually see what's up there. I'm actually right." He takes the guy, without saying a word, he takes him up the scaffolding, right up to the face of David. He takes a chisel, some dust, marble dust, and a hammer, and starts lightly chiseling it. I'm sorry. Lightly chiseling. And as he does it, he's letting loose a bit of dust. He's making the impression that he's actually changing the nose, but he's not. He's fooling the guy. And once he does it, so what do you think? And Santorini says, "It's perfect." Right? So that very demonstration that he actually did something, rather than argue, demonstrate to the guy that I did, yeah, Michelangelo did it, fantastic, well done. Because Santorini is a guy who believes that he knows his stuff, he knows his art. So rather than contradicting that, rather than challenging his preconceptions, Michelangelo was playing to it, he was embracing it. And whether there was a bit of a magic trick or sleight of hand, doesn't matter. The idea is that he demonstrated that he did something rather than argue against it. So actions do speak louder than words. And Michelangelo benefited from that transaction, because arguments was not going to gain him anything except bad taste and bad thoughts toward him. So that's an example of actions being louder than words. Another one that's historically famous is Stalin. Joseph Stalin, anyone know? Supreme dictator of communist Russia. Basically, I point to you, you're dead. Simple as that. So you are all people of the communist Soviet Union, and I'm Nikita Khrushchev, who is the successor of Stalin.
Right.
All right. Nikita Khrushchev during the Cold War was the leader of the Soviet Union after Stalin. Now you are asking me. Someone said something. Why didn't you stand up to Stalin? Right? Because he was mass murder and all that. And I and Nikita Khrushchev, I said, who said that? And no one says a word. And I say, that's why. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No one dared to admit that they said that because they were in fear. They felt the fear that I, Nikita Khrushchev, would have felt when Stalin was in my position. So rather than argue, who said that, well, I was there, I want to do something. Rather than argue and defend his position, he demonstrated through that simple statement who said that, and no one would say anything. That action speaks louder than words. That fear, that emotion is what got him to shut up and learn not to argue with the premier of the Soviet Union. So active boldness, even something like that, is very significant. Now, acting with boldness is an interesting thing because we like to think that we do act with boldness, but acting with boldness is more than just doing it. It's more doing it and accepting the consequences. All right? It's not having fear. It's not having the hesitation, because hesitation is the enemy of progress. Is the enemy of action. Now, actions speak louder than words. The truth is generally seen and rarely heard. This is an image of Steve Jobs. Now, as you all know, Steve Jobs, maybe you do know, Steve Jobs was the ultimate micromanager. And thanks to Rachel for sending that link. The ultimate micromanager. So if you think that your president, Joseph, is this asshole of a micromanager, you're wrong. This is a guy who took non-critical phone calls during the development of the iPhone. This was a guy who single-handedly shoved the designer over and said, no, this is how the apps should look like. You employ your iPhones now, you find that there are trademarks of Steve Jobs in there because he single-handedly took charge and micromanaged the heck out of his products. In fact, he micromanaged so hard that if you visit a double-story building, which is an Apple store, you'll find that the staircases is actually designed by Steve Jobs and patented by him. That's how precise his involvement in the development of his products are. So this little nitty-gritty micromanaging things are the hallmarks of a great leader, maybe, maybe not. But the point is, he could have delegated, couldn't he? He could have trusted his members. But here's the difference between a manager and a leader. A manager micromanages, a manager delegates and leaves it because he assumes that that person can do the job. But a leader delegates and sticks to it, keeps track of progress. He doesn't just delegate and assume something's going to be done. He keeps an eye on things, because when you're acting with boldness, you can't just act without looking around you. That's the idea of prescience. It goes hand in hand. You can't act foolishly. You can't act impulsively. So this is a man who acted with boldness. He didn't care what people thought about him. And he was not a very popular person with his employees. They called him a monster, a manic, an obsessed, a freak, a tyrant, in fact. But did he get the job done? Did he make Apple into one of the richest companies in the world? Yes, he did. Because he acted with boldness, despite what people thought about him. So, what can we learn from that? Argument causes resentment and offense. There's little you can gain from that, to be honest. Demonstrate your points. Show, don't tell. Be Michelangelo. Number 3, be a leader, not a manager. If you look up on the internet, you'll find that there's a wealth of resources on the differences between a leader and a manager. A manager prefers stability. A leader chooses progress. And you'll find that that's the difference between why they say these are the best leaders and not these are the best managers, because you'll find very little of that. You find that the managers are just there to keep the people floating, whereas the leaders are leading them to a shore. Symbol of this is the lion. Act with boldness but strike with courage. You'll find that the lion is a majestic beast, a royal king of his kingdom. And there's a reason. But there's a reversal to this. Sorry, not reversal, an addendum. That you can act boldly with precision, not foolishness. So that's something that needs to be considered. When you're striking at a focalized point, you need to be precise and not foolish. But then again, words can sometimes trump action, but only if just as persuasive. Now, like I mentioned, the lion's able to roar, and that roar can be heard for miles, and that roar can chill you to your bones. And that roar, if you didn't know, can also stun a prey. And that's what the lion does before it strikes. If it's not being stealthy, at least. So words have power too, but actions speak louder words, as we all know. Finally, the last point of this is reputation. Reputation is a state of being held in high esteem. So I want to impress on you this. We are all images that we construct. Our identities, our reputation, our state of mind, our self-image, is all images that we construct deliberately. How we present ourselves, the brand, if you will, of our own lives. And this is how we present ourselves to our families, to our friends, to our coworkers, to our business partners. Important thing to know is that reputation, just like image, is malleable. You can change it, you can form it. It's not fixed, it's not rigid. You'll find that a lot of great leaders, a lot of great personalities in history, even today, have images that do not necessarily reflect who they are inside, but it's the images that serve them well. During the War of the Three Kingdoms in ancient China, there was a general called General Liang. Now, General Liang is reputable because he has never lost a battle. And is feared throughout the land as being the general who's never lost a battle. So when he and his small army were occupying a small town, he heard that his arch nemesis, Sima, was coming along the hill to invade. And Sima outnumbered his army 3-1. So, logistically, he would never win. Logically, he would never win. But he relied on his reputation, and he took his sitar, he sat on the wall of his castle, of the village, and he played it. And he told his men, hide, open the doors, and let them come in. And he's just an old man in a Taoist monk robe playing his sitar, like a crazy guy. Right? Because that's his reputation. Now, when Sima comes along the hill, he sees this one lone man playing a sitar, lute, on the wall, and his troops nowhere to be seen, and the doors wide open. As a general, would you invade that place, knowing that you're going to possibly be ambushed, despite the fact that he has a small army? You don't know that, do you? But he relied on his reputation as a man who's never lost a battle to strike fear in his enemies. And that fear is what caused Sima to turn his army back in retreat. Something as simple as that, based on one man's reputation, saved the entire town and saved his entire army. And you find a lot of stories of underdogs going through that throughout history, using their reputation to strike fear in others. Using their reputation to strike fear or horror or disgust in others. This is 2013, and I've chosen a very modest picture here. Background info: Miley Cyrus, Disney princess turned rebel, performed at the Video Music Awards this year, and she made a spectacle of herself. And then thereafter, you've had a whole host of newsworthy stories about how she's being a shame to women, anti-feminist critiques, and all that fantastic stuff you can definitely find online. But what you realize is that whatever she's done doesn't matter. It's just the effect that she's caused by that reputation. Remember, this was a Disney princess. She was a Disney child actor, Hannah Montana, right, who had a double life as a normal girl, but a pop star. So she brought that into her own life, where she scandalously portrayed herself as being a slut. Right? And that twerking thing, all that sort of thing. But this is an image Think about it. This is an image she's constructed. This is an image that she's cultivated in a very high spectacle, highly publicized performance. And you realize that she's not the first, is she? Can anyone think of someone else?
Kanye West.
Britney. And Madonna, but before that. Now, Britney Spears did exactly the same thing in 2001. She came in modestly dressed, and she started taking clothes off into a little tan bikini. Underwear, I don't know. Just like Miley Cyrus did. But the idea was to court attention. The thing about reputation is to court attention at all cost. At all costs. Doesn't matter what people say about you. You're still going to have a reputation. And if that's the reputation you want to create, are you going to be famous? Yes, you are. What you find is that the day after this, Twitter exploded. Facebook exploded. Google News exploded. Google exploded with trending of Miley Cyrus and Robin Thicke and all that sort of people. If you were the marketing manager or PR of this stunt, you'd be really pleased with this stunt. Because what you find on iTunes a week later, that her song Wrecking Ball went top 5, top 2 or something. And even Robin Thicke, who was associated, Robin Thicke was associated with her, maybe even reluctantly, his song became top 2 as well on iTunes. So that idea of having a reputation, but also aligning yourself with another person, is infectious. Reputation is infectious. The people you hang out with is infectious. And Britney also did that with Madonna when they clashed on live TV. This is the extreme, guys. This is the extreme of reputation and images being cultivated to create a spectacle that's out to gain fame and fortune as a result. Now, you people probably wouldn't do this in your life. But that's not to say that you cannot create an image of yourself that's highly personal, that's highly publicized, but also one that attracts people toward you. People like-minded interests, like-minded tastes, customers toward you, professional contacts toward you, opportunities toward you. The reputation is what draws people toward you. It shouldn't reflect them. So guess who? This is a man who courts controversy. He's one of the wealthiest men in England. He's an entrepreneur. He's the definition of an entrepreneur, if you think about it. Branson. Good, Branson. Good news, Branson. Richard Branson. Sir Richard Branson, if you will. This guy is a high school dropout. He has dyslexia. He can't read, he can't write, he can't see numbers well. And yet he's conquered all those things. He has had arrest records. And yet he's become one of the most richest men in England. Why? Reputation. He's considered the rebel billionaire. If you ever seen his reality TV show, it's called The Rebel Billionaire, because that's what he does. He goes out and does the craziest stunts. He has several world records, navigating the globe on a boat, parachute, all that stuff. He's got a knighthood, right, from the Queen. He's got a multi-billion-dollar company called the Virgin Group, which is associated with Virgin Media, Virgin Mobile Phones, Virgin Airlines, Virgin Space Shuttles, right? Virgin Galactic is the first privatized civilian space shuttle to space. And he's the head of it. So Richard Branson courts controversy, he courts fame and publicity. You will easily find a picture of him with a girl in his arms, a very attractive supermodel like this. It's very hard to find one without. And this is a guy who, once upon a time, had a bet with another billionaire, Tony Fernandez, right? CEO of AirAsia. AirAsia is another airline. He had a bet in a Formula 1 racing that if my car wins, all right, Richard Branson said, if my car loses, I will go onto an AirAsia plane, dress up as air stewardess, and serve you. He lost.
That's amazing.
So that's Tony Fernandez, that's Richard Branson. And you can see those fishless stockings. So this is a guy who caused controversy, but is never afraid to act with boldness either. Because that attention is what draws people to him, is what his image is. And if you ever read his biography, Losing My Virginity, literally, you'll have a read of his life. his company is worth £8 billion. £8 billion, not dollars, which is pounds. So, what can we learn from reputation? Polish reputation with attention at all cost. Now, there's a saying that bad publicity is good publicity. It depends on what kind of image you want to create. Back in the day, a famous manager of a traveling circus, P.T. Barnum, he was known as the marketing genius of his time. Because what he did, actually what his mentor did to teach him that lesson, was let a rumor spread that P.T. Barnum was a serial killer. Right? Was a serial killer. And guess what? Naturally, everybody crowded around him started beating him up close to death. It was only until he could convince them that I'm not the guy, and then he's like, what the heck did you do to me? I nearly died. And what his mentor said was this: there's no such thing as bad publicity. The effect of that, all those crowd knew who P.T. Barnum was after that point, despite the incident. And they knew him as the man who directed one of the greatest circuses in the United States. And you can look up his his biography as well. He did some fantastic things to bring people to his circus. One of those things was to hire a homeless man or some guy, get a bunch of bricks, start putting bricks on the floor. Eventually, people might start wondering, what the heck is this guy doing? And they're going to crowd around him, and they're going to follow him. And where are they going to follow him to? Circus. Hold attention at all costs. Bring people towards you. Link to a single outstanding quality. Miley Cyrus is known for sticking her tongue out and twerking and being the rebel of her generation. That's her quality. That's something she graces fantastically. You can think of other people. Richard Branson, the rebel billionaire. Steve Jobs, innovator. It's a single outstanding quality that makes people think of you immediately as soon as they think of you. Associate with similar reputations as well. You'll find that, like attracts like. And even though your reputation is not that great, associate with that person who's of greatness. And you will find that their shine rubs off on you, and you will shine as well as them. Publicize but guard it well. Now, the key to reputation is to guard it with your life. Yes, you may be extreme, you may put yourself out there, you may do some scandalous things, but guard it well because people will bring you down. People will try to put holes in your story. People will try to make stories about you. And if you pick up any magazine from a gas station, you'll see that. And that reputation is essential to your success. And that is pretty much the 3 points of success, which hopefully Elisa will follow up with a brand awareness topic.
Should we go for a break now?
But before that, symbols of bonfire. We'll have a break, yeah. Symbols of bonfire. A name without fame is a flame. Fire without flame. Remember the rhyme. Name without fame is a fire without flame. Name without fame is a fire without flame. Okay. A bonfire attracts attention. Doesn't matter who it burns around them. It attracts attention. And addendum, sorry. Consider the values of your target audience. Remember, reputation is only effective if you have an agenda. If you think about your project, who you're targeting, whether it's a business associate, shareholder, or even the target audience, consider the values and build your reputation, build your image around that. What will please them, attract them, persuade them? At the same time, be formless, adapt it, and reinvent if necessary. The analogy here is reputation is basically persuasion. It's a seductive thing. It's what gets people comfortable around you. It's what gets people attracted to you. Which means that you always have to be formless to adapt to their needs. You have to reinvent yourself to make them look at you as if you are the perfect person for this job or for this situation. So don't worry, this slide's will be up online as well. And Lisa, you want to take a break? 5 minutes?
I'll take 5 minutes.
Yes, please.
Cool.